Good evening. This is Miss AJ with Miss AJ Says, and we are in for a treat. We're doing part two of Real Estate, The Road to the American Dream. In part one, we got a chance to talk a lot about some of the stumbling blocks. What is the American Dream? What is real estate? Some of the stumbling blocks getting to it. And today we're really going to focus on some great questions that everyone sent in. First of all, thank you to each one of you who took the time out, sent in some questions, really had some things that they were wondering about. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring in our guests. I'm going to start with Colin Parker Stevens. I'm going to bring him in. Hi, Colin. How are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic. So just in case for people who are just tuning in this week, or it's been a couple of weeks, so maybe people have forgotten what was said earlier, if you could introduce yourself one more time to our guests and just let them know who you are.
Great. Yeah. So I grew up in the Seattle area, moved every couple of years. So seen a lot of different parts of the Pacific Northwest. Ended up in Kansas and then in California. And I was actually just sharing with Miss AJ and Dave here that my previous life, I was a filmmaker, actor, and real estate's very similar. You always have a new boss, and that's your client. And you're always on your feet. You're moving around in new settings and new characters and always new challenges. So I have found the transition into real estate really speaks to my nature and what I love doing.
So excited to hear a little bit more from you. You gave great information last week. So looking forward to you and Dave handling some questions that I can't answer because I don't know enough. But that's why we're here at Miss AJ Says. So speaking of amazing people, let me bring Dave Jones onto the screen. Dave, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How you doing, AJ and Colin?
I'm pretending I'm not sick, but actually I am. So bear with me. NyQuil is helping me get through this. Actually, DayQuil. But why don't you tell our studio audience, our viewers, a little bit about yourself? You have some extraordinary things under your belt. I want them to know about it.
My name is Dave Jones. I am a local native of Tacoma, Pierce County, Gig Harbor area. Grew up in Gig Harbor after I was born in Tacoma. And went to college around here, Central Washington University, Tacoma Community College, UW Tacoma. I've been in education for 15 years prior to real estate. And my last gig was an assistant principal at a high school. So I have that. Former basketball coach. I like Colin. I'm interested in film and stuff like that, but I just do it as a hobby on the side. And then I'm the co-owner with my wife of Windermere Abode in Tacoma, Washington.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that you guys are here. First of all, the accomplishments that both of you have really been successful in, mainly in, I love the fact that it all connects to education. It connects to creativity, because in these days you have to be educated and creative to get to where you need to go. And that's why I'm so excited to have you guys as the people who are going to be answering these questions. Now, again, these are not my questions. These are questions that we've gotten from the different people who were not only tuned in live, but also watched the YouTube channel, watched the replays. So got a lot of them coming in over the last couple of weeks. So let's get started with, let's see, I'm looking at them to make sure I've got some, here's one. We'll start with, this is one that I struggle with, the lingo. And this was sent in by Amy, the lingo. I don't get what they're saying. Where can I get more information? A book, a website? Like, help me out, because you guys are stating all these really cool things that sound so smart, and I'm like, nah. So, real estate lingo is different. How did you all get most of your education in that? And then, secondly, where does common man go to understand some of the things that are being said?
Yeah, great. Dave, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, you know what? It sounds really silly, but YouTube, like I have, so my wife, Ann Jones, she goes by Tacoma Jones. She actually has a full series with one of her friends, Marguerite's, and it's one of her claims to fame, if you will. I know she probably doesn't want to hear that, but they would go through and explain everything. If you go, I mean, I'm serious. Like if you go look up Tacoma Jones, the stuff that they were doing, and these videos are old. They're from I mean, all relative. They're from around the 2014-15 timeframe. But they'd made a whole series on inspection and just breaking down and explaining in an entertaining way. Marguerite's this really like just a really fun person to watch on camera. But they really did a good job of breaking down the different parts of the transaction, the different parts of what does this mean? What does this mean? And so honestly, I can provide the link to those videos, but like I say YouTube because it's just to me the most, I don't know. I learned by watching them. I shot a couple of the videos. So I mean, I learned from watching those and hearing them talk. So it's one way.
Yeah, YouTube is the new college. It's like literally anything you want to learn, you can go to YouTube and get that. That's a good resource that honestly I wouldn't think of, but that makes sense, especially in this world. Thank you so much. So definitely YouTube. And hey, anytime throughout the week, if you want to put in a couple of those links on my page, or I can send them over to everybody, definitely let's get people connected with that. What are some other locations or sources that people can learn a little bit more about this? Because a lot of people, this is not something that was passed down from their parents or their grandparents or their great grandparents. This is all brand new. So how else can someone like me get more information?
Sure. Yeah. I put down 3 and YouTube was at the top of the list. Totally parrot that. Second, and the obvious, like a real estate professional. That's our job, and we're going to be able to answer specific questions that you have on a day-to-day basis when they pop into your brain, because you're not going to think of all the questions right up front. And so, our brain, pick it. We want you to. We learn all of this information so that you would. And then thirdly, I really love podcasts, and a little plug for Dave here. I actually listen to Inside a Boat, and I really love, they've got a lot of just like a bunch of different things. What's forbearance? What does that word mean, right? It's right there. What is forbearance? Yeah. So I checked it out this week. Good stuff. I can tell you guys have great energy in your office, and like everyone just seems like family, and it's great information. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. So speaking of getting information, I'm sorry, I just cut somebody off. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna say we can link that too or whatever. I mean, it's all about just getting information out there, because I know people are looking for it. So your realtor, I think, is the first place. Like if you really want to get that real life experience and talk to someone that like and trust, for sure. But then if you don't do that, just like Colin said, I think he's spot on with YouTube and podcasts.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people maybe are scared to get to a realtor because they don't know what they don't know. And they're kind of scared of sounding stupid, like, or being embarrassed. So speaking of information and passing it on to the next generation, this was a great question. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next one. So this part of it, I think I want my kids to know what I didn't learn growing up about real estate. What are some resources where we can learn as a family? Which, I mean, great information. If we teach them how to do so many things, why not talk about financial empowerment earlier? What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, talk about it, and that sounds silly, but part of it, I think, would take some of those resources that you're getting from a podcast and a YouTube and bring it to the dinner table. Talk to them about what does it mean when a property, increases in value? What do you call that, right? What is a down payment? How does one save for that? Even basic, what compound interest, right? Bringing that to the dinner table is something I didn't grow up with. And so I recognize the value of it now. Like, sit down with my kids, we're just chatting, make talking about finances and real estate comfortable. It doesn't have to be this scary monster in the room. Let's just talk about it. Like, okay, what's your question, And so that's, I think, taking what and distilling it down, and then finding a dedicated time to really just like have it be out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, it also can start with the question of, do we own our house? Start there, and do we own it or do we not own it? And this is how I would phrase it or how I would frame that conversation is, okay, so we do own it. How did you get to own that house? Just talking about it, like Colin said, at the dinner table or wherever. I mean, you could be walking outside during quarantine COVID times, and And, or if we don't own the house, what would you have done differently? And you just sit there and go, I don't know. Well, let's go watch some videos then. What happened? How do I own a house? Why do I want to own a house? Just some of those really, it seems really basic and really, but it can lead to different conversations. And I'm actually trying to have that conversation in public schools. So I'm in the process of trying to start a club at the local high school.
That would be amazing.
Because I think it's just so important for kids to start having these conversations. I'm working with a career and technical ed director that I know from back in my time at Tacoma Public Schools, and we're going to try to we're in the process of putting together a club amongst all the gazillion other things I'm trying to do. But I'm so passionate about that part of just education and teaching kids to ask these questions earlier. And then they can also see that might even lead to, okay, what's happening in my city? Because Tacoma right now is being gentrified. I'm just going to be real. And so not gentrified in the way that, but the prices are just climbing so much faster than the wages are, So how do kids digest that? If I'm a kid in the South Tacoma Lincoln district and I see house signs going up everywhere and the prices are going up, but they're in school the whole time. So they kind of see it, but they don't know, oh, we got a Starbucks now. Yeah. That's cool. And start going there. Like, do you know why that's there? So there's just some conversations I think that need to be had in the public school sector. And they, so hopefully we can start pushing that.
That is so exciting. And I would love to, when you get a chance to again, link us up with that information, because I think a lot of people would be really interested, not only to see how that plays out, but okay, how do I bring that into my school district, or maybe into my church, or into my whatever social group that I have. These are the types of things and conversations that allow generational wealth, because we were talking about it earlier, education and creativity. And that's a conversation where you can talk about, okay, if our family hasn't had any, doesn't own our home, or hasn't had that in the past, we don't have anybody who's had that. Let's talk about why, and then we can get more into, the struggles, the roadblocks, the hurdles, so that they are way ahead of the game rather than way behind it.
Right.
That is so fantastic. But I think just what you said, conversations, especially for kids, they don't know what they don't know, and they won't know unless we start introducing it. And that is for, and anybody who's watching, even if you are not a parent, even if you do not have kids, if you're somebody's auntie or uncle, if you are a teacher, if you are somebody who's in someone's life, it isn't just, it takes a village. So think about the people in your life that maybe don't own their own home. Get them tuned into this, get into a conversation, and let's get people going.
I enter it like, do you like to make money for doing nothing? Most people say, yes, I enjoy making money doing just living. So that's how I like to start it with kids, because they can't understand, like, oh, wait, I'm making money. Yeah, you're making money right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. So here's the next question, or Colin, did you have anything else to add into that? Don't want to be rude.
No, it's great. No, it's not rude at all. It's great. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to have kids talking, using that lingo for real estate. Like, I would love to see a fourth grader talking about escrow. That would be amazing.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the reasons, one of the reasons that this particular show is on, is because people get embarrassed about talking about things that they're not used to, and maybe struggle with it. And we're all human. We don't like doing things that might make us look kind of dumb. So this was one of the questions in regards to approaching a lender or real estate person. I'm scared of being judged by mistakes made in the past. How have you helped others get past that fear and embarrassment? That's a great question, because I'll be honest, that's me. Like, I didn't put in this question, but that is one that I have, because I know I've done some not so smart things in the past, but I know that in order to move forward, I got to know what I don't know. How do you, in your jobs, help people feel more at ease so you can move them forward? Because that seems really daunting to me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, so, gosh, it's so.
I love how
How
you
do you
throw him
pass
under
that?
the bus. Colin, you got this, right?
No.
No, okay, so this is how I look at it, right? When a kid is trying to learn how to walk, right, and they fall down, no one looks at that kid and goes, "Oh well, I guess he'll never learn to walk," right?
Oh,
They don't do
yeah.
that. They don't do that, right? Because there's the understanding that part of learning to walk is learning to fall. And if we get ashamed of the falling, then we'll never, walk. And it sounds basic and hallmarky, but it's so true. We can be very hard on ourselves. But watch a kid. A kid isn't hard on himself or herself or themselves. They just stand up and go, okay, let's try this again. So I think that's changing that mindset of recognizing that failure is a part of success. It just has to be.
Yeah.
And then another thing I'd lean on is like, for me personally, the other side of fear is faith. There's always on the other side of fear is faith. And so when you use the word fear, I say, find a real estate agent that you have, you really believe in, you really trust that they have your butt. And so that you can take some of that fear and put it into faith of the fact that, hey, I got someone that's watching out for me, that I can bounce ideas off of, that has my best interests in mind. And that can help some of that fear be replaced.
That is really good. And the idea of going from fear to faith, and that it's a process. Like, thank you for saying that. Like, you don't start off in perfection. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah. And Colin said something really important, which is that person that you know and you trust. And it might be a friend that you know and trust who then has someone that they know and trust, a realtor or someone, because you don't want to go. 'Cause, I'll just tell a quick story. So I had a friend who referred us a person who's looking for a home, but they had been burned in the last situation in the past, in 2008, in the housing bubble and then the crash and all that, and kind of got used by a lender, and really the lender didn't really explain what was going to happen based on it was probably not a fixed rate. It was probably an ARM of some sort and a zero money down, and and so ended up losing the house, and now come forward about 10 to 12 years is saying, and was really timid, just like, who do I trust? I just had this traumatic situation for myself. Who do I trust? This person just closed on their home about, was it end of last week? And I could not have been more happy, but it was through a friend. It was my best friend, one of my best friends, someone who worked with him. And so she, she said, hey, do you know? So like, who do you know? And he was just like, oh yeah, Dave and Ann got you. And then we were able to hook him up with one of our brokers. And then I follow along the whole way. I don't just like let you go and then you don't hear from me again. I still keep in touch with our broker, obviously, because we're working together, but also then I make sure I touch base on how things are going, and I review the files so I know what's going on with the file. But at the same time, it's just about taking care of people. And I just totally felt her on just that traumatic piece of just getting back on your feet, getting back in a home. So everyone's different. Every situation is different, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about out here. We all struggle in our own ways, and whether it be mentally, financially, physically, socially, we all have something. I will not lie. So trust me, this journey is for us to help each other and to support each other through hard times, good times, all of it. So, there are people out there that are willing to help you in the real estate space. You just, find them, ask a friend.
Yeah.
Oh, were you going to say something? I almost just got you. I was like, So I have another question. Stop it. And this is one that I'm interested to hear about, because we're talking about a process. We're talking about, this is not something that happens in, a week or two. This is a little bit more of a lengthy process, and there's a lot of things that coincide. And this was a great question. How much time does it take on average? Obviously, yeah, as you were saying, every situation is different. Every home buying experience is different. But for someone who just doesn't know anything, how much time are we looking at from start a process to end? Like if they are just starting off, like, okay, well, first of all, what would be the official first step? And then from there, kind of give us a timeline of what you've experienced in general, obviously. But that's a great question.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and start. So the process is different for everyone, but the process of buying the actual home from the point when you get into contract to the end of the contract can be 30 days, it can be 45 days, it could be 60 days. It just kind of, once you get under contract, it's kind of hard to know, but typically it's 30 days. If I were to just look at all the files I see, it's typically 30 days, but there are variations of what that looks like. There could be different things that happen during that transaction.
Sure.
The realtor's job is to help navigate those potholes for you. It's not going to be all fun and roses and the whole time, but the realtor's job is to make sure that you understand that and that they're there to support you and watch out for some of those potholes for you. Now, that's just the transaction part. So once you have the transaction, but before the transaction and after the transaction depends on the person. So you might go to a lender, which is your first step, like go to a lender, a trusted lender, see how much you can purchase. Now that lender might say you can afford 300,000, and you say, I want more than that. And they say, all right, well, you need to work and you need to do this, and this. And that might take you another 3 months or 4 months to get to the price that you're looking at. It kind of depends on your own financial situation. And are you ready to buy at that price point that you're looking at? A lot, how people, I know I have 2 young boys, and a lot of times their eyes are bigger than their stomach. And so I like to say that for sometimes with people with houses, their eyes are bigger than the pockets, and sometimes that happens quite a bit, or you want more than what the market is basically saying. It's like, I want 3 bedrooms and I got it. And the price point that you're looking at may not have that available unless you're looking at a fixer or there's some other things going on with the house. So, but that process though, can take anywhere from a year for some people, just from the outset of like thinking about it and lender and going, okay, or they could be like, yep, we're ready to go. You go to the lender, they say you're pre-approved for this much. All right, let's go out and go hunt. And then you start submitting offers or finding houses that you like and going to see them with your realtor, and then you put in an offer, and then you have 30 days once you fall under contract. If you are lucky enough to get under contract in this market, I mean, that's where a skilled realtor really helps you in this market. Someone like Colin. Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, very similar, and I'm currently, on a pre-sale project. So we're talking people are putting down deposits 3 years. I mean, the building isn't even built yet, right? So like Dave said, it's a massive, 3 years, right? They're putting down a deposit. So there's a lot there, but I think that was very succinct and kind of hit all those marks. 30 days is general. But again, maybe the home isn't built yet. There's instances in which, the family with whom you're buying the home from is going to want to live in it a little bit longer for whatever extenuating circumstances, right? So there's a lot of things. Whoa. Yeah. And so you need a realtor for. Thanks, Dave.
Oh, that's the best. So what is the difference between, and I don't have this as a question, this is my question. What's the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent? Or is there a difference?
That's a good question.
Because I see, you see the commercials and I assume they're both the same thing, because it's just like, it starts with an R, must be the same. Is that true, or what is that?
Well, I can speak to that. Like, so for example, we at Windermere Abode are a realtor office. So to join our office, you have to be part of the realtors group. So the realtor is a national association that you pay dues to, and it's definitely a higher, there's ethics and practices, standard of practice that they go by. There's trainings, there's conferences. You're just part of this association that's held to just a higher standard than just your typical real estate agent. So if someone says they're a realtor, and that's a trademarked symbol there, if someone says they're a realtor, that means that they have opted into the higher standard of practice with this association. That's how I understand it, at least.
Okay. And so a real estate agent then is,
it's someone who practices real estate. You don't have to be a realtor, but just you're opting into something that is a little more, I guess. Then they have different, they have a standard of practice, and you're held to those standards, I guess.
So it's kind of like a real estate agent is your basic Costco membership, and then if you want to upgrade, you get the executive one.
There you go. You could do it.
I think there's good real estate agents too. It's not like if this person's not a realtor, I'm not going to use it. I mean, that's not the case. It's just someone who you just know that they opted into this whole deal, or their office makes them, not makes them, but in order to be a part of the office, for example, at our office, that's part of the deals. You pay realtor dues.
No, that's good to know, because again, that's nothing I knew about. That's for sure. So thank you for upgrading my education. I know better. So I
don't want you to think that it's like there's good real estate agents who are not realtors too. They're out there. So it's not.
Gotcha. And to do your and here's another question. This is again not one of the ones that I got sent in, but just one that just popped into my brain. How do you do your due diligence in regards to choosing who you're going to work with? Like, what are some of the what should a person do before they say, "I choose you, Pikachu"? What just went to? Yes, Pokemon. That happened.
I heard Colin has a process or something like that. I heard.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, I mean,
I love you guys.
Like with anything, online reviews are a great way to go. It's not a bad place to start. It's just like anything, people like you enough to go online and rate you, then it probably is a good sign that you're worthwhile, right? I do think there's a personality fit that's necessary. I think there's a curiosity that can exist in a real estate agent that I think you should always be aware of. But I think it's important, and I'm going to get eaten up by realtors and real estate agents all over for saying this, but you're not married to your real estate agent, right? And so I think a lot of people don't understand that, in that, like, you can always you can look, right? And it gets into this gray area, because to take someone's client is frowned upon and not illegal. And I've had one instance in which a client that I had found a real estate agent that they just clicked, and I respectfully said, you know what, go there, go do that. I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna be fine. I want you to be as comfortable as possible. And I knew the agent personally, so I knew that they were of a high caliber, and so I felt comfortable to say, look, do what you need to do. And so that happens, right? And so I would say shop, recognize that, again, you're shopping. I think a lot of people, whether it's a lender or a real estate agent, they feel like they're locked in, or like somehow they've got to look good and avoid looking bad. And it's like, no, be honest, be upfront. We're trying to earn your business. And accordingly, there are certain marks and things that we should do. So. Hi, Michelle.
Can I add? Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So what Colin said is exactly correct. It's true. The only instance where you are undercut, like you are tied to an agent, is if you sign a buyer's agency agreement. So what that agreement says is that, okay, I'm working with you. And so if your agent gives it to you, and just know that that's what's happening, I'm working with you. Now, you can break off that agreement either way. But still at the same time, what it does is it gives you some commitment, because an agent, like if you're like working with 5 different agents and you're saying, hey, I want to go see this house, agents their time is money, like their time is, they're paid on commission. So people
Yeah.
don't realize that. It's like, hey, I want to spend 2 hours with me looking at houses. It's just like, okay, well, I'm trying to earn your business, but at the same time, I have other business that actually is happening. I don't, how much time am I willing to spend? So some agents might say, okay, I'll do this one ride. And then, after that, we need to figure out if we're going to work together still, or, some people don't. It just depends on the agent and the relationship that you have with that person. So I do recommend that people interview like multiple agents though. It does happen. Look online, look at the reviews, like Colin said, look at their content that they have online. You can, that's kind of, and I'll just put the sauce out there. That's the whole reason why we put our people out there, so that you can see what they're like without like hi, my name is Colin. What's your last name, Colin? Anyway, my name is David.
Colin Parker's.
Yes, my name is David Jones. I'm here to. It's just like, you don't talk to me like that. Like, you ain't talking to me like that when we're out there. I want to see what you're really truly like. And so that's what we really encourage our brokers to be out there and just like podcast, video, something, let people know who you are, like for real. Like, because, and also how knowledgeable you are, because people are really, we have a lot of smart people out there. And so, but Colin is exactly right. You're not necessarily married to your realtor unless you have that buyer agency agreement signed.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And that also honestly, hearing that puts me at ease, because, I think we talked last week about sometimes personality wise or communication wise, it's just not a match. And to know that, I'm assuming that most people who are in this business are just like you guys and are really looking to find that correct match. So that really,
always,
to me, it takes a little bit more of the fear away. I'm looking for the next question, because there's a lot of them in here and I want to make sure. Oh, here's an interesting one. And I'm not sure, normally we would have Miss Jessica here. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us tonight, but this might be, I don't know if you guys would be able to answer this one. It's an interesting one. What pieces of information should I bring in talking to a lender, and let me add to that, in talking to a realtor or real estate agent? What actual documentation or information does someone need to bring on that first meeting?
Great. Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think every lender's a little different, but it's pretty basic. You're definitely going to want to have your proof of income. You're going to want to have proof of employment. If you're self-employed, you want to show a track record of income. Generally, if you want to have at least a year, but really they're looking for like 3 years of proven income if you're a independent business owner, right? You can't. So it's important to have a demonstrated, success in whatever the business is that you own. Tax information sometimes, and it's kind of the basics that all of them are going to ask for. Now, some will ask for additional pieces, and I may be blanking on a couple of them. What did I miss, Dave?
I think you got all of them for the most part. When they start digging deeper is when they get to the underwriting part of the whole process, which isn't until you're ready to, you're already under contract, or you could get pre-underwritten. You can get, and by underwriting, it means like, all right, we're going to start digging real deep. We're going like, do you owe child support? Things that you might not even know off the top of your head, but they have that information. And so they start digging a little deeper. But for the basic first part, Colin hit them all. And yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. That phrase, underwriting, what does that mean?
Yeah. So that's the process. So like when you go to your lender, and like Colin was just saying, you give your proof of income, in whatever situation you're in. Okay. You then get a pre-approval letter, and they say, hey, you qualify, you're pre-approved for X amount, $350,000, right? and you go out and you search for your house, you find it, boom, we submit an offer, we're under contract. So now your bank that said that you're pre-approved for $350,000 needs to truly like make sure that you're good for it, you know? And so during that process, before they would do the appraisal, which is down the road, you know, they need to dig a little deeper and just make sure you're good for the money. Like, that's what I mean is they're going to like dig, you know, and sometimes it's within the office and sometimes it's in Tucson, Arizona, you know, preferably somewhere in the office or somewhere there's a relationship between your lender and the underwriter. But, you know, that's where they just start digging a little deeper into your past history of finances to make sure that you're good for the money. And if you have any other outstanding anything that you need to have taken care of, or red flags, you know, this person has 50 collection agency, whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, imagine you, like, if I came to you, AJ, and I said, hey, I need to borrow $100,000. I'll pay you back in a week. And you're sitting there going,
oh, wait, no.
I mean, how are you going to do that? You know, I need to see how you're going to pay me back. How much money are you making? Sense. What do you know what I mean? That's what the bank is doing. They're like, okay, so are you good for this money? We're going to dig a little deeper to find out. Gotcha. That's the easy way, I guess. That's how I understand it.
And my understanding is there's a lot of people who, you know, again, going back to, I've made some mistakes in the past. So this would be the time that when you're working with a professional, they would, I'm assuming what would be the steps where under the underwriting, they find some oopsies. Is there opportunity to fix those oopsies?
If I would say to anyone that has some of those oopsies, disclose it up front so there's no surprises at the end of the transaction. The last thing we want is to find out about that thing. I've seen it all, where you find out about something and all of a sudden the deal is shaky and you might not get the house now because your lender's saying, we didn't know about that. How come you didn't tell me 5 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? You know, so tell them everything financially that could be of importance in this process.
And I encourage anyone who is watching now or is going to be watching the replays, if there are words like underwriting and stuff like that, hey, we're going to be posting some things where you can actually look these things up. But if you have any questions, just like you did a couple of weeks ago, feel free to add it in the comments or direct message us, or whatever way you want to contact us. We're here to give information, and these two are top notch. They know what they're talking about, and one of the things I appreciate about both of you is if you don't know, you'll go find out. So I appreciate that.
I don't know everything.
Yeah,
I mean, I know things, but I'll be honest, I don't know everything. I think that when you feel like you've arrived or you feel like you've known everything, that means you really don't know everything.
Yeah,
be curious.
Yeah. And I love the curiosity that's coming out. I got another question. This is an interesting one, and I think this is where a lot of people are going to maybe fall into. It's like, if I feel I or a friend is experiencing bias in any one of these stages, who do I contact? And I'll add in what do I do? Because there's a lot of people, some people who have contacted me, who learned a lot about redlining from you, Dave, and from you, Colin, and are going, okay, I already own my house. I'm already established, but I'm seeing where this is happening. How do I help? What do I do? And obviously, for the people who are in the middle of it, who do they contact when they feel like a lender is not treating them well or is operating in bias? Who do they contact if, I think someone brought up, if they're selling their home and the appraiser gives them, lowballs them, what's the recourse? And that's another question that I would really love to ask. But let's start with, if you feel you're experiencing bias, one, how do you tell? And two, who do you tell?
Yeah, great. So there is the Fair Housing Center of Washington. So they're the state mandated place. I mean, really, even on their website, there's a spot that says file a claim. It's right there, you know. So that is FHC Washington, I want to say .com or .org, but it's, if you just type in Fair Housing Center of Washington, it'll come up. That's a place where you can file a claim. Also, you know, speaking to, depending on who you think is biased, I don't know as much on the lender side, but in the real estate side, you reach out to a real estate professional. They can reach out to what's called their designated broker or their managing broker, who is very well versed in law. That's what makes them a designated broker. And so they can also be a really great resource in letting you know exactly what laws may have been broken or what biases, you know, explicit or implicit, may have been acted upon in your case. So I would definitely go there.
That's good to hear.
And then, and to add to that, just so that everyone knows, when Colin said fair housing, so there's protected classes under fair housing. And so that's your race, your race or color, religion, your sex, your national origin, you know, like all of the things that let's see, what else? Familial status, age, families with children under 18, pregnant women, you know, there's a bunch of protected classes that you cannot discriminate against. And so, you know, I think Colin hit the nail on the head. Other than that, just making sure that you fall under one of those. Well, it can be, you don't have to fall under one of those, but that's just so people understand that that's the standard that we're held to, that we cannot do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what repercussions happen? Say someone went to I mean, you guys have more experience or more examples of what could happen. If you could give us an example, and then just pick one, and then what are some of the steps that you've either seen or know this is what will happen once it's reported? Because, you know, I'm kind of, okay, I'll be a little bit cynical. I'll be like, okay, I'm just telling, you know, Betsy Sue, who's behind her desk, and it goes into a piece of paper that just ends up on someone's desk and nothing ever happens. What can actually happen? Like, if that is happening, what are the consequences? I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
Well, hopefully it doesn't get to that point and your agent is above board. Like if we have a seller and the seller says, hey, I only want to sell this to a Muslim person. So, and the agent should probably say, no, we can't do that. Yeah. Or I've seen things happen during when buyers go to purchase a house or they submit an offer on a house. One practice is a love letter. So you send they write a letter to the seller saying, hey, just tell them their story. This is and so that is a gray one for me. I think that, you know, there's a lot of discrimination and bias that can happen with those letters. And so it is really, really important that the listing agent handles those with care, so that discrimination or bias cannot come into play. So maybe they don't show the letters up front and then show the offers, and then you can share the letters of the ones that you choose to. I don't know, whatever. I personally don't like it, but it happens. Because there's just way too much implicit bias that happens. We already have a problem with it. We don't need more problems with it. But what happens after that then is that complaint has come to the brokerage of the impacted party feels that is responsible for it. And you know, like we have to try to fix that, or we have to make sure, you know, like we have to prove that, hey, yeah, we weren't discriminating. This is our process. That's why it's important, if there's agents listening, have a process that you do with every single person or every single client, because then when that time comes, this is the thing I do for everybody. And especially when it comes to those letters. So yeah, as far as what do we do? I mean, I think Colin already said, you contact the managing broker, contact the lender, If it's an appraisal situation, who manages that company that's doing the appraisal, or the lender. So, and then what happens up to this point? I can tell you, I'm not very confident in that part because of what we've seen historically happen and still happening with appraisals and things of that nature. So we're still working on that part.
Okay, that's good to know. But it's also good to know that there are steps that we can take and do our due diligence and do what we can on our side.
Yeah, we'll definitely advocate. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. We will advocate. But as far as how far we can get with that, I can't promise. I don't. That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm really passionate about fixing. So we're working on that part.
Absolutely,
it's something you could do in the moment. Something you could do in the moment as well. Document everything you can. So whenever the incident happens, write it down, type it out exactly as it happened. If you have any texts, if you have any emails that you're able to gather, just do your due diligence as well in making sure that you have everything in the moment. We're in a digital age now. There's a lot of stuff that gets captured.
Yeah. And since we're in this one, here's another question. I am a white man who is just learning about redlining. What are some actionable steps that I can take to combat it? Because, like I was saying before, there are some people, okay, I'm not looking for a home, but I'm now hearing things. I'm now educated. I'm now learning about it. So what can I do? I feel like my hands are tied. I'm just sitting here like, oh, sorry. And I love the fact that he's just like, I want to do something. What can Joe off the street or Jill off the street or Jerome or Jaquinda do off the street? That was awful.
Yeah. Jerome, Sharonda, vote.
Everybody. Vote.
All of them, every single person you just named needs to go vote. But I think more specifically here, redlining is lender. It's hard to say what an actionable step can be on the ground for someone, white, any color, really, because it is somewhat of a nuanced practice in lending. What you can do is you can talk about it. You can be in the conversation about it. You can be educating other people that it does exist, that although we passed the Fair Housing Act in 1968, it does not mean that it's fully been eradicated. And so I think the conversations there, actionable is a little more difficult, specifically with redlining, unless you're in an office while lenders are writing loans. Now, we did speak in the last episode, about steering, and we also spoke about block busting. Those are great opportunities where you're going to be seeing it happening on the ground, and that is a great time to ring the alarm.
Okay.
Right? Contact the Fair Housing Center of Washington. Contact a trusted real estate agent. That's an instance where if you see it, say something. And if you don't want to say it in the moment, you should. But let's say if you don't in the moment, you do have protected places where you can not be, or you can feel more comfortable. Yeah.
That makes sense. I had heard something about some of the bylaws that are written into certain cities. And my thought is, okay, there's like 3 different questions that are trying to jump out of my brain. How does one look up the bylaws or the things that have been written into charters in different cities? Because it may, like some people found out surprisingly that there are some sketchy things written into the bylaws and charters of certain cities that have been in there since 18 whatever and are still there and are actually affecting that. How does one look up that information, and can that help?
I mean, you can go to your title rep. So you ask your agent to go to a title rep, and a lot of times it might be on the title where they have some of those old bylaws or whatever are on there, and some of them still are on there, but they're not enforceable anymore. So like Colin said, a lot of it is nuanced and happens behind closed doors with the lending practices, or even back when we had the last housing bubble, the lending practices were to what they called them ghetto loans, quote unquote, and they would actually target Black and brown communities, especially churches, for these subprime mortgages where the rate was going to go sky high at some point in time, and their payments were going to balloon. These were really, these people were qualified for a conventional loan, which is a normal, fixed rate loan, but they would sell them these loans that they knew were problematic, that they knew were not, up to speed. So during that downtime, during that downturn, I'm sorry, it just, and it's actually if you go read about it, it's crazy. So that's where that stuff was happening. And it was hard for anyone that wasn't educated to even understand, because you're like, yeah, I want to get into a house. It happens a lot of the times that way. But yeah, I think I agree with Colin, where it's just educate yourself. Segregated by Design is a IG account, and also a very good 17-minute movie. I think I mentioned that last time. I don't know if I did or not, but that's a really, really, really good one. The 13th is a good one. Explained has one on Netflix about the wealth gap. And that's I think it's about a 14 or 12-minute watch. That's a good one to really learn about redlining and how the wealth gap has been exacerbated by that. So, there's a lot of different ways that we can educate ourselves and have that conversation with other people when they talk about, why is that school like that? Or why does it, well, that school is like that because we kind of pushed everyone to be in that same place, so. That's so Segregated by Design, though, is a really good kind of an IG account that you can follow. That's really gives little chunks and pieces of information, because the book Color of Law is like a textbook. It is a tough read, but it's a good read. But Segregated by Design is the kind of the Cliff Notes version, IG and video of that book, and it's really good. Same author, John Rothstein.
Yeah, great. Another good one is To Have or Be Had, which is it's actually a relatively recent book. A woman who dives into that, specifically real estate in 21st century, stuff that's still going on. So it's a good read as well.
And what's that called again?
To Have or Be Had. To Have or Be Had. Yeah.
Gotcha. I want to just put it on the banner real quick. So those who are looking to do that, and what we'll do during the rest of this week and going into next week, as I'll be talking to you guys behind the scenes, is really get that information out to everyone so they can start reading it. We just started an audiobook that's talking about the law practices behind redlining. And it's really interesting. I'll be honest, and I'll speak with all truth. It hurt my feelings, because seeing how, like, literally my feelings are hurt. I am but hurt right now, because seeing how insidious and intentional this has been, and for a group of people that their everyday life is, how do we keep people from not having? Like, I don't understand that mentality. But I'm also running into people who have been behind the scenes of it, have seen it, and then are part of it because they don't say anything because they're afraid of losing their dollars, because, as you say, it's on commission. There's a number of people who ran from this topic when I started talking about it. And it's like, okay.
Well, I have news for him. There's more people who are out here who want to create the world that we all want to live in, and those people can help your business too. And there's people who want to stand behind someone who has values and puts people before their dollars. And at the end of the day, we're all here on the planet you can take, what if you took currency away? Then what?
Yeah.
What's our currency then? It's social currency. Well, social currency to me is always going to be the most important currency. What are your values? What do you stand up? How do you treat people? How do you treat people in need? Do you oppress people? I agree with you, AJ. It really, when I learned about it, it just really, what hurt me was that, why did I learn it so late? That's what hurt me. I was like, why did I learn this so late? And I'm part of I'm a product of it, And why did I learn this so late? So that's what hurt my feelings. I'm just
Yeah.
going, how did I not learn about this in school, man? Like, part of it is because even my teachers didn't know. No one knew.
Exactly.
No one knew.
Yeah. And that I had to ask a few people for forgiveness, honestly. Because once I learned, I'll talk about myself. Once I learned that I was automatically like, and you knew, and it's like I didn't know. So for whatever background you come from, instead of coming in with assumption and blame, let's really look at it and say, educate, because if I didn't know, that means there's a very good chance that that other person across from me is not being insidious. They don't know either, because the system was made for people not to know this. But it's coming forward. So I would love an opportunity right now just to speak to either people who didn't know, are now learning and are kind of embarrassed. What would you say as an encouragement to them, not to just hold on to the problem, but let's move towards the solution? How would you encourage that person who wants to be a part of furthering the education? Okay, I'll be blunt. There are people of color who didn't know that. There are also people who are white who also didn't know it. They are not part of the problem. They are just in the system also. How would you encourage that person who's saying, I want to do more? I want to help people get to that American dream. If you had that person in front of you, what would you say to them to make them have some hope?
It's a great question. Yeah. Yeah, right. I'll take it back a bit. We've been where we've been, and then we have what we're going.
You froze in the weirdest position. You're like,
it froze like this and went.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no!
But you look great. You're better now.
Yeah. Jeez.
But you were saying.
All right, go ahead.
Right. Well, we're all going to look stupid sometimes. So maybe that's the lesson here. We're all going to look stupid sometimes. And you got to laugh. No, that's not the lesson. The lesson is that there's just simply where we've been. And then there's where we're going. Right. And at that moment, right, where we decide where we're going to move forward, I really do believe there's two choices. There's fear of where we've been, or there's faith that there is a better answer out there. And the word that you used was hope. And whether it's hope or it's faith, it's understanding that we collectively can do this. You know, I believe it's a we program, and it's every day. It's a we program, right? There's a saying I really love. You know, you probably heard the saying, rising tide lifts all boats, right? I like that saying, but
that's good.
In that instance, the tide is an external thing, right? We're all these boats and we're just sitting here and the tide lifts and we all lift. I prefer another metaphor, which is the circle rises together. And what that means is if this is a circle, this side of the circle can only rise as high as this side of the circle. And so if you want to rise, it's your responsibility to be a part of the entire circle rising together, because we will only rise as high as those that are not able to rise with us. And so I'll get off my soapbox here, but like, look around you and see, where are other people hurting? You know, where are people? What are you missing, right? And so that, I mean, that's, I could go on and on. I do this, but lead with love, lead with faith, and go vote.
Right. Sure. And I would love to hear from you, Mr. Jones. If you were standing in front of someone who needed that hope, what is a shot of hope that you could give them?
Oh man. So if you don't like, so if it's someone that's just learning about all of this stuff and you don't know where to start, I just educate yourself and then educate someone else. Each one teach one. So if we teach one more person, then that's just one more person in the world that knows exactly what they should have known or don't know, and give people grace. Everyone starts in a different place.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't know everything. And and I'll be honest, for me, that's really, really, really hard, because I'm like, what? Wait. and it's more about like when people go, oh, well, but what about, and I'm like, no, there is no what about. But I'm like, oh, wait, slow down, Dave. They haven't read as many books as you have. They don't know about all of the things that have happened in the past. And so you need to educate them and walk them back and say, did you know about this? And did you know about this? And did you know about this? And there's a pattern of behavior here. And I would imagine you don't like that. I don't like that. How do we fix this? And but yeah, there is hope. I think the hope is in people, and the hope is in each other, and the hope is in we are more connected now than we ever have been in the history of our being. You know, so reach out and find those people. They're out there. Reach out and find the people. Like I never even knew you all a month ago. I didn't even know y'all. I didn't even know y'all existed. And now here we are talking about the same thing because we share the same values. We share the same hope. We share the same optimism. We share everything. And that's just how the world works. And the universe will put signs in front of you. You just have to see them. You just have to see them. Sometimes you might trip over something and go, God, and you hit your elbow on something, but that happened for a reason. I don't know why it happened, but it happened for a reason, because you might have seen something, or you had to go somewhere and get patched up, and you met someone and you had a conversation that might have changed the course of your day. Right. So like, it's just about not looking at feeding into the negative stuff and looking at what the universe is feeding you. The universe is feeding you these messages all day long. It's just a matter of, are your eyes open to see them, and the people in front of you too.
Yeah, exactly. This only came because we all connected at different places, and somehow we are. And one of my favorite things for Miss AJ Says is, together we are undefeated. We are absolutely undefeated. As a matter of fact, we will conquer this entire thing, and it's by folks talking to folks about things that folks need to talk about. And it doesn't matter what you look like, what your background is, what your faith or belief is. As humans, we've got this. So I just want to encourage everybody, please, if you have someone who maybe needs a little bit of hope in this area, or hope in general, please share this, send this out to somebody, give them an opportunity to listen to some amazing people who have great information, who have a heart to help, to serve, and to educate, be creative in it. And again, together, we are undefeated. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. Just in case you didn't see the information, Colin Parker Stevens, here's his information. I'll put it up there real quick. Give them a couple of seconds to write it down. You can always hit rewind. And then also Dave Jones. You guys are great information. And throughout the next couple of weeks, we're just going to be adding to the information, some of the books that we've been talking about, some of the links, some of the websites. If you'd like more information, please send comments. We definitely want to hear from you. And here's Josh, who we want to say congratulations to Josh, who just had his baby girl. And I'm just gonna I love this. As we're closing out, I'm just gonna throw up some of the stuff that he was putting up there. And then he's like, yes, I'm gonna use my Josh voice. Conversations, educate, speak up. That is not him. Sorry, that does not sound like him at all. Oh, I love this. This is part of the solution. That's where we want to be. We want to be solution oriented, not just part of the problem. I love that, people, for part.
Absolutely.
And this one I want you guys to see. Dave Jones, Colin Parker Stevens, our money. And we might have to do a part 3 probably later on in the year, because I'm already getting a whole bunch of questions. So we might have to do a part 3 with more of the questions, because they are really, really good ones. Thank you again for your time. Everybody, this is Miss AJ Says. We'll see you in 2 weeks with our next episode. Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Love